Friends, if we could invite everyone to please take seats so that we can begin shortly. Thank you. I know that all of us are very moved and delighted that we can come together in the sense of offering comfort, having been touched by Bernie in so many, many ways, so many of us over the course of the decades. In this way, we offer our shoulders and our hearts to a bereaved family, and seated in this holy space, a sense of gratitude for all that Bernie did to make it possible for us to even be here today. We begin with words from our tradition, words of psalms, of solace, of hope and comfort. Rabbi Zarin.
As a parent has compassion for his children, Adonai shows compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over them, and they are no more, and no one can recognize where they grew. But Adonai's compassion is everlasting, God's kindness to children's children, to all the reverent ones endures, age after age, unchanging.
Let our words of prayer at this time echo profoundly, specifically in the hearts and lives of our dear bereaved this day. To Lee, to Jeff with Nancy, to Stephanie and Skylar, to Jillian, to Nathan, Alec, and Craig, we offer the hope and the prayer that God's presence will be with you throughout the dark hours of loss. We hope that you will find comfort not only in Bernie's profound presence in your life, but also a measure of comfort in knowing that you gave him the dignity of your care and love throughout his travails and challenges of illness. May God's divine presence always be with you in the weeks and months that follow, knowing that Never will there be an abandonment of your experience of care and concern. Always will Bernie's experience on this earth, the touch of his profound and wonderful deeds, be a part of our lives forever. May God always have mercy not only on Bernie's soul, but be a shield and a hope to you for all generations as well. We begin our service of remembrance this day with those who knew Bernie and loved him the most, of course, chiefly his family. We will begin with Jeff and Stephanie, following which we will hear from Alec, Craig, and Jilly.
Just a quick technical check. We're live streaming today for those of you in the room. I wasn't speaking to God just now. That's a separate cell plan. If you're interested, please see Rabbi Rosen afterwards. So I was calling our son Nathan, who's in Yerushalayim right now. There's no flights out because of the war. Nathan, we're sorry that you can't be here today, but I want you to know that your Saba thought the world of you. Building and launching rockets together, beaming with pride as you led our Seder last year together. We'll all be together soon. So when I wrote this eulogy, I kind of titled it out for myself to look at a structure, and I want to start with an immigrant story. So his name was Bernd Joost Selig. I grew up with a cohort of Jeffs, Michaels, Stevens. He was born in Miltenberg, Germany in 1935 in the shadow of Kristallnacht. His father made the decision to bring the family to America at a moment when the world had made it very clear it did not welcome people like them. He was not alone in that journey. My mother came to America too, a Holocaust survivor from Poland, who found her way to New York in the depths of Flatbush, New York. Two people, two countries, two families that survived what the world tried to do them, and somehow in New York, they found each other. While he was already in college, she was still in high school, 2 years behind him. They fell in love, got married, and together made their way to Schenectady, New York. There he went to work for General Electric, building classified nuclear propulsion systems for the United States Navy submarines. A Jewish refugee from Nazi Germany and a Holocaust survivor from Poland, married and building a new life in America. If you are looking for the definition of defying everything the world threw at you, you can stop right there. What you are about to hear next is not something I wrote. Sometime in the 90s, my father sat down and made a list of personal accounting of what he believed to be his legacy, his accomplishments. He chose his words the way he chose everything, carefully, deliberately. As you listen, a theme will emerge. What he did for his family, what he did for his community, and the kindness that flowed between him and the people fortunate enough to know him. This is a curated list from his writings. 1943 to 1949, God's calling somebody. As a child during the war years, he helped support his household by picking up baskets of secondhand fruits and vegetables from a produce vendor. He started when he was 8 years old. In the 60s, as program chair for the Mohawk section of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, he arranged for an astronaut to be a guest speaker. Over 700 people attended, slightly less than this. I believe that was John Glenn. He also knew Alan Shepard. My daddy knew astronauts. The 70s. He served as an accreditor of mechanical engineering curricula for 6 years, helping shape the standards of the profession itself. He was chosen to sing in the Simsbury Light Opera Company chorus and performed in 8 different productions of Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. And he was invited as a guest lecturer at the Technion, Israel's MIT, on nuclear energy. When we arrived in Haifa for that trip, we checked into a small hotel where the man at the front desk looked down on my father for being German, cold and dismissive. Then the Technion called the hotel to let them know a car would be swinging by to pick up their guest lecturer. Suddenly it was Herr Professor and right this way, sir. We gave my father a lot of crap for that. Across the decades, when one of his direct reports began suffering from depression and wanted to leave the company, my father helped him work through his illness. This man was still at the company at the time of my father's writing of the list. He led the acquisition team at Hartford Steam Boiler for several companies that were merged and subsequently became strategic successes. And one of his former employees at Combustion Engineering dedicated a book he wrote to my father and a manager who reported to him. He started the Nuclear Services Division at Combustion Engineering and grew it into a profitable business that became a bread and butter service for ABB and Combustion Engineering Nuclear to this day. He made that same list the way he made everything: organized, deliberate, and labeled within an inch of its life. His middle name should have been Rolodex. The stranger. The Torah commands us to care for the stranger, the sojourner, the foreigner, the one who survives without belonging. It mentions them more than 36 times. 36 times. More mentions than Elvis got in the Epstein files. The king of rock and roll. Love the stranger as yourself, because once you were a stranger too. My father did not need the reminder. He had been that person. He arrived without the advantages others take for granted, built his way forward anyways, and spent the rest of his life making sure the people around him never felt like strangers themselves. An officer and a gentleman. My father was a commissioned officer in the United States Army. We actually began planning, because that's what we do, this service several years ago. And I asked him whether he would like a military funeral. He thought about it, and he said no. And I asked him why. He had served with pride, he did ROTC, earned his commission, but he had not seen combat. He did not feel right drawing on those honors when others had actually been in the field and deserved them far more. And that, my friends, was my father in that moment. The moral compass, the humility, the instinct to step aside for someone who had earned it more. Dad. Every person in this room and everyone watching from other continents is standing at attention for you today. We all salute you. He also traveled the world with my mother, instantly recognizable wherever they landed by his signature beach attire. Shorts and calf-length black socks, worn with full confidence and zero apology. Every year was a gift, and he knew it. Starting at the age of around 50, my father would tell me on his birthday, matter-of-factly, almost cheerfully, you know, according to the actuarial charts, I'm not supposed to be alive. I didn't really understand that until I took him to New York before the high holidays to visit our relatives' graves. Men and women in our own family line, gone in their 40s and 50s, before grandchildren, before they got to see what came next. And our family, Sydney and Gail, came up from Florida and popped into Queens and were just at the grave sites. And Sydney was saying to me before we started, he goes, look at the dates of how old they were when they passed, and it's true. So he lived to 90 and a half. I'm counting the half because at that age, every day counts. He outlived that family history by a margin no actuary would have predicted, long enough for every extra birthday, every extra Seder, the births of his grandchildren, Alec, Craig, Jillian, and Nathan, their bar and bat mitzvahs, their high school graduations, 3 out of 4 college graduations as Mason starts college this fall. Dad won the life lottery, but let me be clear, he did not win it easily. There were moments along the way, more than one, where the outcome could have been very different. Close calls that by all rights should have ended this story far too soon. And in this room today are people who were there for some of those moments. People who showed up, stepped in, and made sure he made it through. You know who you are. Our family wants you to know. We know too. Without you, we would not have had those extra years. Without you, there would have been no 90 and a half. On behalf of us, thank you. And when the fine time came, he did not leave this world in a hospital room surrounded by strangers and machines. He passed away in his own home with his loving wife, our mother Lee, by his side. For those of you who know bridge, he bid his contract, played every card with patience and precision, and made every last trick. He would not want you to leave here sad. He would want you to walk out with purpose, carrying something from the way he lived, the way he treated people, the way he always showed up. My father would want you to be the reason someone had a better day. Bernd Joost Selig, beloved father, husband, grandfather, neighbor, commissioned officer, keeper of an impeccable filing system. Okay.
For those of you that don't know me and couldn't tell by looking at me, I am Bernie's daughter, Stephanie. Bethel was my second home growing up, as it was to Dad for the better part of his life. And although I feel at home on the Bema, no one has ever prepared for this moment. I was fortunate to have a dad who was 90 years old, but with his advanced age, as most of you know, came poor health in the last year. I would encourage all of you to remember my dad as the vibrant man that he was for most of his wonderful long life. My dad was strong. He would do his daily push-ups and sit-ups in the hallway right outside my bedroom door each morning when we were young. I would wake up for school with him right there outside my door. I loved when my dad would lift me up, turn me upside down, and let me walk on the ceiling. My dad was an accomplished engineer. He would build everything and fix everything around the house. Sukkah building time was a favorite for us. None of that prefab stuff in our house. We built that thing from scratch. There were meticulously laid out 2x4s, each numbered to match up properly so that each year we knew how to put it together. Jeff inherited that gene, and thankfully I have the handyman on speed dial. Sorry, Skylar. My dad was a community leader and tremendous volunteer. Not only was he president of this synagogue and sat on various committees for many, many years, he also gave his time to numerous other organizations and people over the years, too many to list. My favorite stories of my dad's volunteering really came later in life when he was well into retirement. He loved to tell me stories of his time at the Jewish Federation Food Bank. He used to love to bring the grandkids there, first, of course, to show them off, but also so they could help out and learn the value of volunteering very early in life. And when he was in his 80s, he used to visit an elderly woman. I know it sounds kind of funny, but she was in her 90s. My dad was kind. So many gathered here today were on the receiving end of his kindness. Jody, you know what I'm talking about. My father always wanted to know how you were. He asked a lot of questions, and he truly listened and was interested. He treated Skylar like a second son. He always asked Skylar about work, curious about his various cases, making sure he was happy and thriving. My dad was an amazing listener and advisor. He was a great resource whether you were struggling at work, needed help with your resume, or needed a sounding board. He was a straight shooter, and sometimes you might not like what he had to say, but he was always right. Over the past few days, we have received so many wonderful texts and phone calls remembering my dad. Several former employees have told us he was the best boss they ever had. My dad was generous. He supported the arts. He gave generously to religious organizations, to Israel, to medical needs, and he gave very generously to his family. He was generous with his time as well, never rushing anyone who he was speaking with. My dad was a lover of music. He sang in the choir here for many years. I would go with him to choir practice often. It was so much fun to hide up there and then have free reign of the whole building when no one was here. If I was allowed to sneak up during services, even better, you could look out and spy on the whole congregation. My parents adored opera and classical music. Sorry, Dad, Jeff and I did not inherit the love of opera. Drives to New York could be torture for us, always with the classical music playing. Speaking of driving, my dad was a human GPS. I used to ask, how did you know where to go before GPSs? Well, he would tell me. He would take out the maps, he would memorize the route, and then just get us there. I am still amazed to this day. Most of us here put Waze on when we drive somewhere we have been hundreds of times. And Mom, I know what you are thinking. He wasn't perfect, especially when he had you walking in circles when you were in Europe one year. My dad loved chocolate. Funny, I really had no idea that was a genetic trait. My father had to work to help support himself throughout high school. He found my dream job. He worked at Barton's candy store. They didn't pay him much in money, but he sure was well compensated with chocolate. My dad was funny. He always had a cute joke, riddle, silly thing to make you laugh. He really entertained the aides these past few months with his humor. He never lost it, even with his declining health. My kids to this day still love the Brooklyn poem that my dad taught them. You can ask them when you see them. I am sure they would be happy to recite it for you. My dad was a man of tradition. He loved gathering family together for a Jewish holiday. His smile was ear to ear when the kids could recite Kiddush or when they were able to do the 4 questions at the Seder. My dad was an incredible grandfather. I mean, he didn't change diapers, but boy, was he proud of each and every one of his grandkids. He wore those college sweatshirts with pride. Can you believe he even wore his Harvard hat to Alex's graduation? Nathan, I know you are watching right now. Although he will be unable to wear that Northeastern sweatshirt, he told everyone he could that you had gotten in and would be attending after your gap year in Israel. My dad was a lucky man. Right in the same apartment building on East 21st Street in Brooklyn lived a gorgeous young girl named Lee, and they would have celebrated their 68th wedding anniversary next month. Mom, Jeff and I are so grateful to you for the love, devotion, and strength you had to take care of Dad always, but especially in these final difficult months. I think all of us should consider ourselves lucky to have known my dad. He made our lives and the world a better place. But Jeff and I won the lottery. All the kids on the street voted one year who they wanted for a father. And as Debbie told us, no surprise, they picked our father. Dad, we love you and we will miss you dearly.
Thank you all for coming. It's very hard to sum up an amazing life of over 90 years in a few words, but we'll try. As you just heard, my grandpa always had a smile on his face, a silly joke to put one on yours, and he loved a good dessert. I think I get that from him. Might think it's a little odd, I'm mostly happy and smiling today, but as they just said, I think that's a a testament to what he would have liked us to do. Be happy about his life, be happy to be here with each other. He was strong in many ways. He was wise, open-minded, warm, kind, and loving to everybody. As you heard, he lived the American dream. He really did. And us being here today, 3 college graduates, and some good accomplishments in the family is really a testament to that. I admire his tenacity, his perseverance through all the challenges in his life. And I'm not going to recount the story more, but all of those accomplishments and his commitment throughout all those challenges to work hard, to be consistent, to show up for his family and his friends and his loved ones will continue to inspire me for as long as I live. That's not all to life, as he knew. Even before he retired, I remember he would spend time building model rockets. And in particular, it probably seemed like engineering 101 to him, but I didn't know any better, and it seemed like building a real rocket to the moon. We would just drive around looking for a big enough parking lot, hoping that they wouldn't get stuck in a tree on the way down. We always loved picking berries together in the summer as a family, and we would come home and Grandma would make them into blueberry sauce or peach sauce or mixed berry sauce. Small thing, but that has stuck with me. A good box of raspberries is still one of my favorite foods, and I can eat them very quickly, and I'm always reminded of that time we spent together with those like buckets around our necks that were this big but seemed like they were bigger than us. At the Connecticut shore where we'd always go for the summer, we'd always go to the beach, and he had the same nice beach outfit, would walk onto the sand with his black sneakers, his black socks, sometimes shorts, sometimes khaki pants, a button down. He's always well dressed, even on the beach, but didn't really matter. He was just there to watch us have a good time and play and be happy, laugh together. Sometimes people mistake photos of him for me, Craig in particular. There's one photo of him as a young child that Craig once actually thought was a photo of me in black and white, and I take it as a compliment, especially if you've seen some of the best photos of him. There's one I was looking at just this morning that I love. He's outside in some backyard in Brooklyn or something, flexing and smiling, and probably at his physical peak more than I will ever be. And he couldn't possibly have known how long people would be looking at that photo and smiling and impressed with him. We both have his bright blue eyes, and I have his nose, especially from the side. Other than some kiddish luncheons here in his honor, I remember those as a ball with a lot more people here than this, and more happy occasions, of course. But he made a huge impact at Bethel. And I remember coming to services here when I was younger. I didn't really like them very much. I probably complained a lot because I didn't want to get dressed up, and I couldn't really follow along with services, so I complained, but then it was fun to show up and feel like you were in the presence of a celebrity and see his picture in the back, and I said, wow, that was a long time ago. He said, shh. But most of all at services, I loved to hear him sing, and him singing was really special. He poured his heart out, and you could hear the emotion in his voice, and that was always inspiring to me. And I love music. Again, not the same kind of music that he loves, but I think that I get my love of music and my emotional attachment to music from him. I admire, like I said, his strength, both the physical kind in the photo that I mentioned, and also the more nuanced kind that kept him still writing things despite his tremor. Around the house you can see things in scratch writing, not actually that much worse than mine, but he would also engage with us despite how tired he would be, napping in his favorite chair in the den where I sat to write some of this. He would never get upset when we would come and wake him up just because he wanted to spend time with us. Some call it tenacity, other people stubbornness. I guess I've inherited both of those, depending on which way you put it. But the most lasting thing for me is looking at photos, even from the last few years, where he's standing with his back straight, and he is, has aged, and life and gravity pull you down, and it takes a lot of strength, mental and physical, to stand up tall when that happens, and so that really stuck with me. Like I said, he was always laughing and smiling, and he never took anything too seriously, which I try to take with me. The love of a delicious bite of ice cream or chocolate or any other dessert, and really the way that he could enjoy something so simple. And I was lucky enough to spend some time really in the last few months with him, and one of the funniest things, like my mom said, was he just never lost his sense of humor, and he always kept people laughing. 1 week ago today, I was here, and I went to brunch with Grammy and Debbie, and we came back, and he wanted to eat. So we had some ice cream, and Grammy fed him ice cream, and he looked like something was the matter, and Grammy said, "What's bothering you?" And he stopped his look of pain and looked at her and said, "You." And everybody laughed, and we were like, okay, you're still laughing. But he always would listen to you and give you strong hugs and love and smiles, and he just loved to make people laugh. Burned Yost Selig, he would call himself Burnt Toast, or BS. I'll close and turn it over to my brother with one of these tactics, a Brooklyn poem. Spring is sprung, the grass is riz, I wonder where the boydie is.
The Boyd is on the wing, how absurd. I thought the wing was on the Boyd. Grandpa had an amazing sense of humor. Everyone knows about bad dad jokes, but Grandpa's humor was Grandpa jokes. It was different. He could crack a simple, stupid joke at any time. He could hold a beaming smile in any room. He could have a warm hug for you at any moment. He could fall asleep in any chair. I wouldn't use the word jolly to describe anyone else. Grandpa was jolly. If you walk out to the bathroom today, you can see his photo on the wall of past presidents, and you do not need to go close enough to see which one he is. You can see his smile beaming from all the way down the hallway. He was always lighthearted, even in the last period of his life. We laughed with Grandpa all throughout our last visit with him, as Alex said. He had the same joking energy as ever, no matter how difficult it got. I'll always be grateful for those last one-liners. He taught us it's okay to make a joke in a hard time, or make fun of yourself a little. He taught us to be grateful for what we have and to help others whenever we can. He always had an old story to tell or a question to ask you. He always let me play piano for him in the house while he listened and pictured his favorite classical music. I have a lot to remember my grandpa by. Every family meal we eat all together and finish with a bowl of Tillamook ice cream. Every Jewish holiday we celebrate, from reading the Passover story out of an old Haggadah to lighting Hanukkah candles over FaceTime. Most of all, every time I put on this warm zip-up sweatshirt with a fuzzy inside that Grandpa let me borrow from him and I never gave back. It's my favorite thing to wear around the house whenever I want to be cozy. It's soft and warm, just like a hug from Grandpa. Each time I wear it, I'll know he's holding me close and saying I love you in my ear.
Hi. So as my father said, first I wanted to start off by saying that my brother Nathan wishes he could be here today, but is unfortunately stuck in Israel at the moment. When thinking about what I wanted to say about my relationship with Grandpa, I thought it would be best to give a rundown of what a typical visit at Grammy and Grandpa's was like for a significant portion of my childhood. We would walk in and immediately get hugs. Then Grandpa would stand back and look at us and say, "I think you grew some." At a certain point, I began responding with, "No, I think you shrunk some." Then we would of course be led into the kitchen by Grammy and presented with enough food for an army, or at least Nathan's lunch. From there, I would go downstairs with Grandpa to his workshop to see the progress he made on the dollhouse he was building me. He spent hours in the workshop for years, sawing, painting, and decoupaging that dollhouse just for me. By the time he finished it, I was a bit too old to be playing with dollhouses, but it is now something very special that I can pass on to my hypothetical future children. We would then go back upstairs, and if the weather was nice, we would go outside to see the latest chipmunk he had trapped to prevent it from chewing up the yard. That would be our pet for the weekend before Grandpa released it back to the forest, although I don't think he released them far enough away because we definitely had the same Alvin reappear a few different times. We then would go back inside and I would run to go grab Monopoly. Monopoly was Grandpa's favorite game, and he made it my favorite game too. Every time I visited, we would play at least one game of Monopoly, and I would always win. I don't think he was letting me win because, one, he said he wasn't, and 2, it takes some effort to bankrupt yourself in Monopoly when you're dealing out the properties. But maybe that's a secret he's taken to his grave. When I would win, he would say, "You're a regular Donald Trump." And I would respond, "Who's that?" Around 2016, I learned who that was, and we agreed that maybe it was time to find someone else to compare me to. We would have dinner and then eventually dessert, which would sometimes be ice cream. He would always have chocolate ice cream and would forget or pretend to forget that I don't like chocolate ice cream. So when I would request vanilla or strawberry, he would say, "You don't want chocolate ice cream? Are you sure you're my granddaughter?" I don't think he ever met a chocolate dessert he didn't like. After dinner, we would sit and talk for a while about all kinds of things, what I was learning in school, what was going on in the world, or stories from his life. I was a curious child, and my favorite game besides Monopoly was the why game. He always fielded my many questions, and when he didn't know something, he was not afraid to say so and suggest we look it up tomorrow. Besides his love, my education was the biggest gift Grandpa gave me. From our births, he invested in our education, and as we grew up, continued to invest by cultivating our minds. Sorry. He was an extremely smart and worldly man, and as a child, he was my oracle, the ancient one who had all or most of the answers. With him, I was free to question, to wonder, to debate, and argue and disagree, but ultimately to learn. I would not be the student and scholar I am today if not for the conversations I've had with him. Although very recent, my most treasured memory will be him being able to come to my college graduation. As he once said, "From the shuttle to Harvard in 3 generations, not too shabby." I don't necessarily believe that you get back from the world what you put in, but I do believe that all you can do is give and do good and expect nothing in return, and that is exactly the kind of man Grandpa was. He gave and put his heart into everything that he did, and what he got back was a long and fruitful life full of friends and family who love him very much. When writing this speech, I tried not to canonize him, because I know Grammy doesn't like that. But he's my grandfather, and I think in my mind, he already was and will always be canonized.
Thank you, wonderful family, for the beautiful words that penetrate all of our hearts. Back in the fall of 1991, as I was pondering a change of rabbinic positions, the phone rang one day. It was Bernie on the phone, head of the search committee, the 92 committee of Bethel. Would I be interested in discussing the possibility of coming to the congregation? He had my resume, but shared some things about this congregation. What did he say? We're financially stable. That was a good thing, I thought. And more importantly, it was a place filled with remarkable people. And it took me all of about 30 seconds to realize that if this congregation as a whole was anything like Bernie, it must be a remarkable place indeed. I recall that everything about that search process was so well thought out, so inviting of multiple sources of feedback, so attuned to both doing that job of securing a new rabbinic leader and of being a mensch in the process. I could tell even then how much he loved this place, how devoted he was. We talked a little bit about the fact that he was a past president. I offered my condolences about that. And he seemed to survive the ordeal because indeed it is one of the hardest leadership positions in Jewish life. And as we have heard this combination of what made up the essential Bernie, skilled and ordered in his thinking and his deeds, a man who never met a project he didn't love, but at the same time sensitive to human needs, a man who had a remarkable laugh, a joyous one. It's not that he never had his moments of being a little bit irritated. He did. And he had some failures along the way in terms of not, well, being able to pass on that love of opera to his children. But his links to the highest stirrings of the human soul, be it in the realm of art or of the spiritual or of music, these never flagged. And as things proceeded and it was clear that we would be able to come to Bethel, he made certain that we met and would come to know a wide variety of people. When I would call him at work with a question, he would always pick up the phone quite brusquely with the simple answer, Selig. And he would explain that he really couldn't talk much at work, but after work, all was fair game. He was all ears and would give me whatever time was necessary. When we were looking for a house, he was sensitive to an accessibility concern of ours, having an entranceway that would be appropriate for our son Donnie. Again, the attention to details, making the difference. All of the details of the flow of human life, these were the things that mattered to him. Bernie could not have orchestrated a better sense of timing when it came to his sad departure from this earth. The double Torah portion this week of Vayakel Pikudei illustrate in minutia and remarkable devotion to that detail the construction of Israel's portable sanctuary in the wilderness, how the clasps and the curtains are to be put together, the walls, the altar, that of the eternal flame, the menorah, the pegs, every imaginable issue and section. It was an engineering marvel, an architectural project of the highest order. But it wasn't just another building, it was God's dwelling place. And I believe with every fiber of my being that Bernie saw this sanctuary, this Bethel, this house of God, as sacred space worthy of the same attention. And like the original builders of the Torah, he too, like Bezalel and Aholiav, was filled with chokhmah, tevunah, and da'at, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. He lived and breathed the well-playing of Bethel for the entirety of his tenure here. At the first Board of Trustees meeting I attended after joining the congregation, there was a kind of go-around of the room, everyone introducing themselves and their positions. When it became Bernie's turn, it wasn't past president, he said, it was simply the word retired. But that would hardly be the case. For the ensuing years, he continued to be an active, dynamic force within this community. He offered his wisdom and experience at meetings, no small number of direct and unmistakable warnings of what might ensue if we would not think in strategic terms about the future. And it became time to do a long-range strategic plan. There was no question as to who would head it. He invested enormous amounts of time and effort to help us to create and envision a future. If someone did not know what a SWOT analysis was before, Bernie came on the scene and would surely know that we would all know painfully well what was entailed in doing so. I can't count the number of times over the years where there would be essentially the question that would boil down to WWBD, what would Bernie do? And fortunately, we would just ask him. It's no wonder he was cherished here, honored by so many quarters within this building, the Men's Club in particular, with his Distinguished Service Award some years back, and by anyone who came into contact with him. After all, how many people but a Bernie Selig would get out of bed in the middle of the night when the alarm system went awry just 100 feet away from his home, go across the parking lot even before the police would arrive, and see what was going on? It all flowed from a Jewish identity that we have heard was so rich and deep. He lived the realm of Jewish prayer and ritual in Germany. Yiddishkeit was in his veins. And of course, with the horrible flow of events in Germany, that place of Beethoven and Wissenschaft gone mad, I remember when he would share in this very room the picture of the family dry goods store that would be looted on Kristallnacht, and he saw the reality of Jewish history etched in his bones. He was the embodiment of the Jewish journey. And what a life he created with you, Lee, for nearly 68 years. Getting married on Hitler's birthday, a touch of sweet revenge. Here, you were alive and created that wonderful family that you have. And I consider myself fortunate and honored to have been witness to some of the wonderful moments in your family's life. And Lee, how often he spoke of you as the anchor of the house and the best cook in the universe. And his children, so proud, his grandchildren, he loved you fiercely, independently for all that you are. And he shared that life, as we have heard, not only on the basis of sentiment and deep feeling, but of values, of the ability to teach that what mattered was always doing the right thing without expectation of reward or recognition, and of making life a rich garden of constant learning and constant helping. Yes, he will be remembered for many things, including the best dad in the cul-de-sac of West Ridge Drive, the roll-up-your-sleeves volunteer, the boss who would never ask another to do something he himself would not do, the man who knew what it meant to be an immigrant to this country and would help then the next wave of immigrants, in this case, from the former Soviet Union, and the value and preciousness of a single human life. In my last conversations with Bernie, even through the haze of illness and weakness, that tremor that so sadly would take much of his ability to control his movements, you could see the beauty of a family commitment to keeping him at home, the home he loved, even though care there would be complex. And what did Bernie talk about besides all of you, his loved ones? Well, just how was Bethel faring these days? Are we getting new members? How was the school? All of the questions he would ask these past 34 years and more. And because he was an architect, a chief architect of this sacred place of God's presence, Bernie never retired from that commitment, never stopped caring, a heartbeat within his soul, this house of God. It's appropriate that I conclude my remarks to note simply, as we know, Bernie was a baritone and a wonderful one. And for many years, he sang very closely with Cantor Ness in the Bethel Choir, yes, up in that loft, channeling the words of our tradition's poets and musicians into this room. And among the pieces he would sing would be a passage known as Enosh in the Yizkor service. Enosh, marking the reality and the frailty of life as flowers in the field. But in choosing to live well, the psalm says, we make an eternal mark, just as Bernie did. And so in honor of Bernie and in honor of all that he stood for, Cantor Ness and leads now a choral presentation with members of our choir of Enosh and Tzaddik Tamar. May these words, the stirrings of our hearts aligned with what we hear, be our humble answer to the remarkable privilege of sharing life in this sacred space with Bernie Selig, Zichrono Livracha, a blessed memory. Following the conclusion of our service here, we will have interment that will take place at the Bethel Cemetery in Avon. For those who would like to remain here or return here for a meal of condolence that will take place, we will be returning here, I would estimate, around 2:45. Excuse me, make it 2:15 to 2:30. And there will be a brief mincha service this afternoon here. There is, in accordance with the obituary that has been published, Shiva that will take place at the Selig home, continuing through Thursday, Monday through Thursday, 2 to 4 p.m., 7 to 9 p.m., with a service in each evening, beginning Monday through the afternoon, on Thursday at 7 p.m. The services here will be, again, one mincha service here this afternoon, and then evening services at the Selig home, commencing tomorrow. At this time, we'll invite everyone to rise for the El Malei Rachamim memorial prayer. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds Bernie performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace, as we say. Amen. At this time, I would like to ask the past presidents of Bethel who are here today to form an honor guard to take your places in the middle aisle, and those who are serving as active pallbearers to come forward at this time.